Hey, y'all, welcome to day 19 of my 30-day reflection series. My name is Sean Aaron, he, him, his, and today's question is: have you experienced misgendering or denial in healthcare? So, this question, I don't really like to answer that much. And so, one of the reasons why I don't like to answer this much is because I have privilege. I've had the privilege in my experience during my transition, and so I don't like to talk about that much because I like to make space for folks who haven't had those same experiences. And I know that there's a lot of folks that don't necessarily have good experiences going to the doctor or getting services in the healthcare. And so I tend to, not that my story isn't as important because I had good experiences, but I try to not take up as much space with sharing my good experiences and allowing folks who haven't had good experiences to share their stories and to be able to discuss and reflect on their experiences and kind of like, think about their experiences and what their experiences mean to them versus me saying, "Oh, I had a good experience," or "Oh, I never experienced that." So I tend to not talk about those things. But because this reflection series is about Black trans visibility, and I also believe that visibility equals possibility, and someone won't know what's possible if I'm not visible. And so when I began my medical transition, I was going through a gender clinic. It's a gender specialty clinic. And so I went into my primary care physician and I said, "Hey, I'm at this phase in my life and I would like to medically transition." And so my primary care physician said, "We are doing a trial period of a gender specialty clinic. And so I want to refer you to that clinic in order to go through this process." So she referred me to that clinic. And so the first step was to have a therapist. And I love this therapist. She was a really good therapist. And I was so sad when she got rid of me, when she kicked me out. Not in a bad way. She kicked me out because she was shifting in her role at the clinic. And so one-on-one therapy sessions was not a part of that anymore. And so I had to find a new therapist. But anyway, I went there and I began therapy within this program. And so I did therapy. So began my medical transition in 2013. And so for me, my transition went rather quickly. So I told my doctor, I went to therapy. And then once I made the decision that that was what I wanted to do, it all happened in 1 year. So I started testosterone February the 11th, 2013. I had top surgery October 1st, 2013. And then I had my name changed December 30th, 2013. And so that's one of the reasons I don't like to tell folks. And so for folks, if this is your first day joining me, I'm the founder and executive director of Dem Bois Inc. And so Dem Bois Inc. was founded based on my own experiences with healthcare. And because of this privilege, I use that in order to found Dem Bois. And so Dem Bois focuses on providing financial assistance to trans men of color in order for them to obtain gender affirming surgeries for those who don't have the financial means to do so. And so in this process, I did all of this in a year, right? And so I had that privilege to do that. And so many trans folks don't have that privilege. And so I went to the therapist. And so I talked to my therapist. I was in therapy for probably about a year and a half, I should say, probably about a year and a half. And so within going to therapy sessions, I also did a lot of groups. And so I would go to like focus groups of like trans men, trans identified folks. And then I would go to like a general group for all trans identified folks. And then I would go to a more niche group. It was just Black trans men. And so I would go into these groups like once a week for about a year or so. And when I finally went back to my therapist and I said, "Hey, I'm ready now and I want to begin HRT." And so from there, she referred me to another doctor. So I switched from my original primary care physician to this other primary care physician who was within this gender specialty clinic. And so from there, they had a lot of experience in this clinic. And so I also want to know, like, does other folks have that in their city? Like, is there access to gender specialty clinics within your city if you've had good experiences or not good experiences? Drop it below in a comment. Let folks know, because it's also about folks not knowing if that is even available in their area, right? But if you say, hey, I know this clinic is available in my city, drop it in the comments, and somebody may come in and read it and say, oh, I didn't know that existed. And so it may open up opportunities for other folks to access these services, right? And so I went to that primary care physician. And so within this process, I didn't have any denial in healthcare. I wasn't misgendered at the time, because also I didn't change my F to an M to just a few years ago. So I think it probably was like 2019. So still on my license, still on my medical ID, it still said F. And so within their system, they had a way to kind of like mark, okay, Sean's chosen name is Sean Aaron, and his pronouns are he, him. Right. And so anytime any doctor outside of the gender specialty clinic looked up my file, they can see, okay, this is a trans identified man. And so this is his preferred name, and these are his pronouns. And so I never had that experience of that. So even also, I went to have a hysterectomy. And so the OBGYN that performed that was also a part of this gender specialty clinic. And so I mentioned hysterectomy because every trans identified person doesn't follow the same journey, right? We're not monolithic. And I talked about this in previous Dem Bois podcast episodes about having bottom surgery not being for me. And I've come to peace with that, right? And so we all have our own journeys that we have to fulfill based on our needs and our wants and our own personal dysphoria with our body parts, right? And so I have no problem with discussing that. I'm very open about that. Um, I in my this part in my life, that's not a part of my journey. And so and I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that. And so recently I went to a focus group. It was all black trans men. And one of the questions that was posed in the group was, how many folks here that need to access gynecology services actually access them? And out of about a group of 30 or 40 folks, only about 5 or 6 people raised their hands. And I was like, wow, there's so many people in here not taking care of their bodies, and it's not just taking care of the things that we can see, but it's also about taking care of the parts that we cannot see. And I know, right? I know it's hard for folks. I know folks have dysphoria about their parts. And, I know that folks don't want to get misgender. I know that folks have been denied health care or certain access to certain things. It feels funny being a trans man and then having to go to see OBGYN. And so you're the only man sitting in a restroom. I mean, in a waiting room, excuse me. And so I know that that's a lot to unpack, right? I know that. But I always like to tell folks that I would rather take care of my body voluntarily than later have my body force me to take care of it involuntarily, right? And so needing to get those checkups even in those uncomfortable moments. And so a bit of advice that I like to give is, if you have a friend, if you have a chosen family member or someone within the community that you trust, to say, hey, you know what? I need someone to go to the doctor with me, as so that you can go, right? And to take care of your body on all parts, right? And so inside this clinic was the OBGYN. And so with my um hysterectomy, and another thing, right, of not being misgendered was when I hadn't changed my name yet or any of that stuff, right? And so when I came out of the surgery and then my surgeon came up to check on me, in the recovery room that I was in, there was a woman that was sharing a room with me. And also my wife at the time was there, and they wouldn't allow her to stay because I was in a room with someone else. And my doctor immediately was like, this is a trans identified man. He needs his own space and his wife needs to stay. And so she really advocated for me, and it was changed like almost in an instant, right? And so I was able to have a room to recover on my own. I remember on a little whiteboard, she put up, his name is Sean, pronouns he, him, right? And so I've had advocates for me, and I've also been able to advocate for myself through this process, right? I'm not letting nobody tell me no. I'm not letting anybody misgender me, right? But that is my relationship to healthcare. Everyone's journey and everyone's relationship is different to healthcare. And so I would love for you to share with me if you feel comfortable knowing that this space is a safe space. Let me know. Have you ever been misgendered in healthcare? Have you ever been denied certain services within healthcare? Are you battling with some dysphoria that prevents you from going to the doctor? Or have you had bad experiences that you don't want to go to the doctor, right? Or are you like me and you've had great experiences? I would love to hear either way. Please share with me. Please engage with this video. Let me know. Let's talk about it, right? Drop in the comments if you have a gender specialty clinic in your area, so other folks that may look at the comment can say, oh, yeah, I know, I live in this area, but I didn't know this existed. So please share. So once again, my name is Sean Aaron, he, him, his, and today is day 19. Please come back and join me the next day. Take care.